Patrick Wohan. I think that's his name, Wojan, or whatever his name is. He pled guilty to over 100 counts connected to possession and distribution of child sexual abuse material involving over 500 victims. This is disgusting. His name is Patrick, and he actually describes himself as Pete Buttigieg's little buddy and his mentor. So he describes Pete Buttigieg as his buddy and as his mentor, and they're pictured with each other. Will we hear anything from Pete Buttigieg? I'm not holding my breath. Probably not. Pete Buttigieg won't come out and condemn the actions of Patrick. He pled guilty to over 100 counts connected to possession and distribution of child sexual abuse material. And there were 500 victims involved. This is absolutely sick. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. So much to get to today. That was just in. I found it and my jaw dropped. And you see all of the pictures of Pete Buttigieg and Patrick, and you're like, Pete Buttigieg, he needs to come out and say something. He needs to either say, he's not my friend, I didn't mentor him, or he needs to come out and say, I didn't know this about Patrick. But Pete Buttigieg is not going to do that. I guarantee it. A few things we're going to talk about here in the 6 o'clock hour. A bystander. This is a must-watch rant, and he goes on a rant. This guy, and I think this is out of the UK. Yeah, it's out of the UK. And he just got so sick of these climate protesters. So they're actually becoming a real problem in the UK. These climate protesters, they're blocking traffic and they just suck at life. Okay. And this bystander just has had enough of it. And he goes on this rant, and it's a must watch rant. I'm going to go through it here on the Morning Buzz. Plus, Joe Scarborough, he's losing his mind. He actually claims that Trump is going to execute anyone anyone he doesn't like, anyone he's allowed to. That's one thing that Joe Scarborough said on his show, The Morning Joe, and he's really losing his mind. He's got TDS really bad. So if Trump gets reelected, he claims that Trump is going to execute anyone he's allowed to do, or allowed to execute, which I don't really understand his logic here. But that's Joe Scarborough. We're going to get to his TDS here on the Morning Buzz in the 6 o'clock hour. Plus, a Bloomington trans-identified inmate. Yes, a Bloomington, Illinois trans-identified inmate. He's an alleged pedophile. He's being jailed alone. Contacted the McLean County Sheriff yesterday, talked with him a bit, and he's being jailed alone. I know a lot of you had questions. Is he being housed with the female inmates? Is he being housed with the male inmates? We're going to get to it here on the Morning Buzz. Why is he being jailed alone? Progressive activism. Let's start here. Was both at its most pointless and unintentionally hilarious highs in 2023. I will never forget over in the UK, and I think also in Germany, these folks, they're called the Just Stop Oil folks. They're nincompoops. And my favorite protest is where they cement their hand down to the ground. That's hilarious. In 2023, they've reached pretty hilarious highs, and these are the most pointless protests I've ever seen. But that's progressive activism. Any kind of protest they do, it's pointless, and it's just really hilarious, and I think it's fun content. So I'm bringing it to you here on the Morning Buzz this morning. In no other part of the world was this more relevant than the UK and the Just Stop Oil nincompoops, okay? The progressive activism, it's going on here in America. We know this. The pointless. I'll never forget the ISU students who were laying down on the ground, and the reason why they were laying down on the ground, they went to the Obama Legacy Center, and they were laying down on the ground. They're pro-Palestinians, Palestinian rallies that they were having, and they're protesters, and they wanted the Democrats to see them. So they went there at this Obama Legacy dinner. A lot of Democrats, Eric Sorensen, who else was in attendance? Patrick Cortese. A lot of Democrats were there that day. It's an annual dinner held in the Bone Student Center. And they were just laying down and holding up these signs that said, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." Very anti-Semitic sign. Um, and they said, "Well, we just wanted to show up to the Bone Student Center, lay down, so that way the Democrats could see us." I think it's funny that they're eating their own here, but, uh, yeah, this is just pointless, and it kinda hilarious if you look at the pictures, and Diane Benjamin from BLN News, she's got the pictures up on her site, but, in no other part of the world, I think that this is the most pointless, most unintentionally hilarious protest. It's going on in the UK where the Just Stop Oil nincompoops, they're there and they're blocking traffic. The people who block traffic, and they wonder why everybody hates them so much. Don't block traffic, okay? Even the vegans take a break from screaming at people who eat meat in front of them, and they roll their eyes at these Just Stop Oil folks because these Just Stop Oil folks are truly unhinged, and they're probably the worst of progressive activism. And believe me, progressive activism is terrible. But one bystanding Brit has had enough, and I just love this guy. He says, "These nutters, they're blocking traffic." He calls them nutters, which I think is really funny with this British accent that he's got. And, he goes, "They were blocking traffic, and they're claiming that they wanna save the planet, and really what they're doing, they're causing these cars to idle and spew more emissions into the planet." So, he took these Just Stop Oil protesters to school, and, um, he made it clear that everything they own, if it wasn't made by oil, it's oil adjacent. It was oil adjacent. So our clothes, our shoes, everything that we wear, everything is powered by oil. Even the electric car you drive. Okay, to make that battery, where does electricity come from? Okay, so everything is powered by natural gas, oil, blah blah blah. And I love what he says here. I'm going to try to play the clip, but I don't know if it's going to work out. But what he says here is pretty hilarious. He goes, "What do you mean stop oil? Just stop oil. All your stuff is made out of oil, you idiots. Your clothes, your jackets, they're all made out of oil or oil adjacent. What the hell are you doing here? Making a nuisance of yourselves." That's what he says here. And I was like, yes, go. I really want to play this, but I don't know why the audio is not working. I'm going to try to get this for you guys, but it's really funny. I'll just tell you what he says, and then I'll try to get the audio. It's funny because he's got the British accent, but I don't know if Brits can be patriots because they're from England, but if it were to be possible for Brits to be patriots, this guy, this hero, would be one. He continued and he says, "What are you doing here? Get off the roads. You're wasting everybody's time, everybody's gas." And he goes, "All these guys," and then he points to the traffic that they're blocking, their engines are running and for more time, and you're wasting more bloody oil, you nutters. So he calls them nutters, and you bloody nutters. And I just thought it was hilarious. And, you know, as we get ready to give thanks in America, Thanksgiving, one of the things here at Cities 92.9 that we're thankful for, I'm thankful for the Just Stop Oil content. I think the videos are funny, and I think they're funny on their own when you just watch them. But then they get even more funny. They're like twice as funny, knowing that these meat deprived brains of theirs, in their own meat deprived brains, these Just Stop Oil folk, they think that they're the heroes in their own narratives. They think that they're doing some sort of hero work, but really, you guys just look like stupid idiots. One thing about the GSO or the JSO, the Just Stop Oil folks, they actually had people infiltrate their little group here, and they gave them a taste of their own medicine. So this is from the trolls who trolled the JSO folk. It turns out that the JSO meets and they drink coffee flown in from Peru. They use single-use cups, and we discovered that before ruining everybody's day, they privately educate their protesters, they privately educate their protesters and stand in a circle and teach each other how to breathe before deciding who amongst them will be arrested that day. So they do like a little bit of yoga before they go out to their big protests and sit in traffic, and then they decide amongst them who's going to be arrested that day. That's how their protest kind of work out. They drink their coffee flown in from Peru, and they use their single-use cups, but Just Stop Oil. So cheers to everyone involved in Just Stop Oil. You've done nothing to stop oil, but you've done plenty to unintentionally entertain me and others and the planet that you think you're saving. They think they're saving the planet. They've done nothing to stop oil, but they're pretty funny. So I got to take a quick break. But when we come back, some things that I want to talk about. Joe Scarborough absolutely losing his mind. He's claiming that Donald Trump is going to execute everybody once he gets reelected. That's just not true. Joe Scarborough is uh, an idiot, but I think he has more so this phenomenon, and you know what it is. It's Trump derangement syndrome. And if you have any leftist friends, leftist relatives that I'm sure you're going to be sitting down around the Thanksgiving table with this week, you know that these people who have TDS, when you interact with them, you can see firsthand the damage that MSNBC has done to that person's brain. And nobody has, I think, worse TDS than Joe Scarborough, the host here of The Morning Joe or whatever on MSNBC. So I'm going to be back. This is The Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button. We are going to be getting to the Bloomington trans-identified inmate, and he's an alleged pedophile, folks. And a lot of people were asking me, "Hey, Kat, is that trans pedophile? Is he being housed with males or is he being housed with females?" And I called up the sheriff and asked him, "Hey, where is he at? And what decisions have you guys made as it relates to where he's going to be housed?" And we got some answers from the sheriff. Now, he is being housed alone, and that is by his choice and by the choice of the sheriff. And we're going to get into why the sheriff thought that that is the best option, um, for not only him but the others in the jail, which makes sense. But the DOC, they don't have any kind of protocols when it comes to this kind of stuff. And that's concerning because more and more we're having trans-identified individuals, and the Illinois Department of Corrections, they should really have a protocol when it comes to trans-identified females and how we house them. Here's what the IODC or IDOC should say. They should say, whatever is in between your legs, that's where you're going to be housed. You don't get special treatment, and your biological sex, whatever that is, you're gonna be housed with that same biological sex. Good morning. Really quick, I do wanna play that audio for you just because I think the British guy talking is way funnier than me just relaying the information to you. As always, I'm live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You can always subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Cat Peterson 929. Let's take a listen. Here we
What
go.
do you mean just stop oil? All your stuff is made out of oil, you idiot. Your clothes, these jackets, they're all made out of oil. What the hell are you doing here making a nuisance of yourselves? It's a joke. What a joke. What are you doing here? Get out the road. You're wasting everybody's time and petrol. All these guys, their engines are running all the time, wasting more bloody oil, you nutters. What is this made out of? What are your clothes made out of? How did your clothes get here? They got here by oil. What are you doing? This makes
Love him. I love him so much. He's such a hero. And I don't know if Brits can be patriots. But this guy, if you could, this guy is a patriot. I mean, I don't know if you can be because you live in England, but this hero would be a patriot, if you could be. So yeah, that was a hilarious story. I mean, this bystander, he just goes on this must watch rant, really, and he just blasts these climate protesters who are blocking traffic. They suck at life, and he just points out the obvious. What are your clothes made out of? How do you get your clothes here? All of these cars that you are blocking, they're idling, they're wasting more of their gas. You guys are nutters. I do want to talk about Joe Scarborough here. I am going to get to him, but first, I do want to talk a little bit about Thanksgiving. So this is an interesting thing. The holiday season, and I brought this up, but this is weird. The whole holiday season makes everybody feel more thankful. According to a new survey, 77% of people said that the holidays actually make them feel more grateful than any other time of the year. 75% said that they express gratitude more often during the holidays. I feel like during the holidays, yes, I do love that about Thanksgiving, but at the same time, we should be doing that every day, holding the door open for people, saying thank you to people. 76% of those surveyed felt more connected to their loved ones during the holidays, which is just so sad. That is true. I would be in that camp. I feel like I don't get as much connection with other people, um, unless it's during the holidays, especially with my loved ones, because you just don't have time to go see them. You don't have time to, talk on the phone. And really, I think we should change that. So 46% of people noticed that they expressed gratitude more. You know what I noticed going into the grocery store, Schnucks? I go to Schnucks. It's up there in North Normal. And I went in and I just grabbed a couple of things from the deli, and I noticed that I find myself going to the deli more and more during the holiday season, probably because, I gotta cook and gotta get things ready for Christmas dinners, Thanksgiving dinners, and you gotta go to the deli, you gotta go to the seafood section, the meat section. Um, but I find myself, I think, wanting to go to the deli more because I want that human interaction and I crave that human interaction way more during the holidays. And I want to express more gratitude towards somebody. So just having a conversation with somebody and saying thank you to somebody who provides me a service, I think that that's something I do. I don't know if that's a weird 309-451-9299. Do you feel more thankful around the holiday season? Do you want to express more gratitude during the holiday season? And do you feel more connected to your loved ones or maybe even people during the holiday season? So what's the best thing about hosting Thanksgiving? There was this survey and I love it. 73% of people said the leftovers. I actually don't like the leftovers so much. I actually enjoy cooking throughout the week. And when you have leftovers, you don't get to cook, which is kind of, I get pretty bored during the week after Thanksgiving because I'm not cooking, I'm not meal planning. And another survey found that 70% of people said that the Thanksgiving dinner leftovers taste better than the original meal, which I say is true, especially when it comes to green bean casserole. Like it's always better the next day. And 35% of people said that they eat leftovers for 5 days or more. Wow. And then 56% of people went as far as to say that Thanksgiving would be ruined if they didn't have any leftovers. I don't know, ruined? I don't know. Thanksgiving. One thing that I wanted to bring you guys is, how do you express your gratitude? How do you, there was this tradition, and a lot of people don't like this tradition. I think it was like near 70% of people said that they wouldn't want to do this Thanksgiving tradition. Now, growing up, we used to do it a lot. It was going around the table and saying one thing that we're thankful for. Now, that's a Thanksgiving tradition. A lot of families do it. What we kind of did as a family, we redesigned it after listening to our pastor, my pastor, actually, Pastor Tim. And he recommended a blessing bowl. So anytime a blessing comes into your life or God, blesses uh blesses you, you write down that blessing and you throw it into the blessing bowl, and you do that all year round. I think that that might be a way to continue to be thankful and to continue to be grateful uh, going into the holiday season. So it's not just the holiday season where you feel more thankful and more grateful. I write down my blessings as the year goes on, and then I throw it into the bowl, and then we share those blessings uh, on typically Christmas. We don't really share them on Thanksgiving, but you can share them at Thanksgiving, maybe share half of them on Thanksgiving Day and then share half of them on Christmas Day. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but like I said, when we come back here on the Morning Buzz, we're going to be talking about Joe Scarborough because he's losing his mind. I mean, literally, I think this guy has TDS really bad, and I think he needs to go see somebody. He's claiming that Donald Trump is going to execute anyone he's allowed to if he's reelected, which doesn't make any sense. He's grasping at straws here. I think journalists have been consumed by this vile rage towards Donald Trump and anyone who supports him for quite some time now. I think journalists have been consumed by this rage, but I think it's getting worse, specifically for Joe. I'll be back. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. If you guys are watching, go ahead and smash the like button. That would really help me out, folks. We are going to be back talking a little bit about Joe Scarborough. One thing that I do want to dig into too is Karen Jean Pierre. She was out there, the White House press secretary. She's Black and lesbian. I have to disclose that because it's very important to her. But the White House is bragging about the second most costly Thanksgiving meal um, in the last 38 years. So it's not as expensive as 2022, but um, it's still way above pre-pandemic levels. So the White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, she opened up Monday's briefing with the whipping out of a menu of Thanksgiving staples, and she claims, and the White House is claiming, that 2023 is one of the cheapest Thanksgivings ever, which is not true. So you start to look at the facts here, and it's just, I mean, we can debunk it, right? And they're trying to gaslight the American people. Um, and this is the part. This is the party that is trying to get you to reject evidence, okay? They try to get you to reject, that the 2020 election was stolen despite this plethora of evidence that it was. They tried to get you to reject, the evidence of January 6th and how it was not a violent insurrection. The White House, now they're claiming that Thanksgiving meals were down from 2022's record high, although they're just slightly down. I think you might save like $3 this year. So I don't know about you, but I'm like going to take that $3. How do you plan on spending your $3? So we've got to talk about that because it's terrible. How she gets out there, and meanwhile we've got Hamas and Israel and the war that's going on over there. We still have hostages. That I guess there's supposed to be some sort of deal where we get those hostages back. It's like a 3-to-1 ratio for every Israeli hostage. The Palestinian people, they get 3 prisoners back, but there's a stipulation there where, hey, if we give you 3 prisoners back, they can't be murderers. They can't have murdered somebody. So we're going to give you 3 Palestinian back, in exchange we expect an Israeli back. So that's kind of the deal that's supposed to be out there. Um, and we've got that, and Kieran Jean-Pierre decides to lead the press conference this yesterday it was. She decides to lead with, this idea that Thanksgiving dinner is cheaper, and it's just not true. She's a liar. So we're going to chat a little bit about Kieran Jean-Pierre. Plus, there's this trans soccer player, and the trans soccer player actually broke a female player's knee, shattered it. And this trans soccer player is now claiming victimhood. When the girls fearing for their safety, they don't want to play against him. So he is discussing, or considering a discrimination lawsuit against the teams, who refuse to play against him, her. Um, After he leaves this opponent of his injured. So we've got to get into that. Also, there was this pastor who sued the mayor. A mayor, it was the San Diego mayor, and the pastor was removed from a board, because of his Christian beliefs, and he refused to condemn, quote, transphobia. And I've told you guys multiple times, smash the like button if you guys remember. Transphobia, is not something that is outrageous. Okay. Now, if you have a fear of the ideology, transgender ideology, that is totally rational. There are irrational fears, and then there are rational fears. Having a rational fear of those who subscribe to the trans ideology, that that's legitimate because we have statistical evidence that proves that those who are subscribing to this ideology, those who practice transgenderism, they tend to kill themselves at an alarming rate. They also, I think it's like 48% of transgenders, they found are actually sex workers, or I don't like to call them sex workers, prostitutes. Um, so an ideology that that has a high suicide rate, that causes people to kill themselves, also causes people to get into a line of work, or work, to cause, or it causes people to commit crime, a sexual crime where you prostitute your body out. That that is something to fear. Okay, the ideology that breeds that sort of behavior, the killing of yourself, and the soliciting yourself, or selling yourself, selling your body. That is something that is rationally feared by people. Yes, I mean, if you wanna say, I fear the trans ideology, so yes, you can call me a transphobe. The reason why I fear that ideology is when you look at it statistically, it it is a concerning, ideology. Why in the world are people killing themselves who decide to become transgender? Why in the world? And it could be for a plethora of reasons, right? I'm not saying, "Oh, they're mentally ill." Okay, if the leftists say that it's because people kill them, because of the hate or whatever, hate crimes, which is just not true. They kill themselves because they're mentally ill. Um, and this is post transition. So those who affirm are affirmed and they get the surgery to affirm themselves, they actually kill themselves at a higher rate than those who don't affirm. So I'm back. Hold on. Woohoo! Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. I was telling our listeners on the YouTube stream, you can go find me there. That's Kat Peterson 929. You can also find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Now, I was telling the folks online, this pastor, he's suing the mayor. It's out of San Diego. He's suing this mayor because the mayor actually removed him from this board that the pastor sat on because of his Christian beliefs and his refusal to condemn transphobia. So the pastor refused to vote on this thing where they were condemning transphobia. And he said, you know what? I'm going to abstain. I'm not going to vote for or against this statement uh and I'm not going to condemn transphobia and I'm not going to um or support transphobia. I'm just going to abstain from the vote. And because he abstained, this pastor, the mayor removed him from this board that he sat on. And this transphobia word, transphobia, Islamophobia, homophobia, whatever the case may be, when you look at things like the transgender ideology, when you look at things like the Islam ideology or religion, there's just statistical evidence that that warrant a very rational fear of that ideology. I want to be clear. I'm not afraid of people. I'm afraid of the ideology and what it makes certain people do. The transgender ideology, I mean, they kill themselves at an alarming rate. The suicide rate amidst the trans community is so high. And then I was reading some more, and you find out a lot of people in the trans community actually pimp themselves out. They actually are what they call sex workers, but I'll call them prostitutes. I'm not going to be politically correct here. This trans ideology, obviously something is going on where everybody in this community, 48% of them are are prostitutes or wind up prostituting themselves out. And or they either prostitute themselves out, become so-called sex workers, or they kill themselves. So any kind of ideology that breeds that sort of behavior, uh, I am I am not I am afraid of that ideology, and that's okay to say. I'm gonna get to this pastor. He's suing the mayor who knocked him off of this board that he sat on because the Christian, he's a pastor. He said, "Look, I'm not going to condemn transphobia, but I'm also not going to say that I am transphobe. I'm not going to vote for or against this thing." So we're gonna get to that, but first, I do want to get to Joe Scarborough. Oh, Joe, he's got TDS. Journalists, like I said, they've been consumed by this vile rage towards Trump and anybody who supports him. And this has been going on for quite some time now. Subsequently, there are no longer these journalists are longer able to think clearly. That's the problem with a lot of these journalists. As their ceaseless efforts to delegitimize the former president, they have become more unhinged by the minute. So I truly do believe Democrats, journalists, these talking heads on TV, they are so unable to think clearly that they just have these really unhinged rants that make no sense. And this happened to Joe Scarborough because he's been suffering with TDS for a long time. And if you have any leftist friends, maybe you have leftist relatives that you're going to be sitting with at the Thanksgiving table, Thanksgiving dinner table with, and you might interact with them. You probably have seen this firsthand, the damage that MSNBC has done and can do to a person's mind. So, really wonderful woman. I was talking with her a little bit and, I didn't know her political affiliation, but I had mentioned, my parents have always dreamed of moving to Florida because it's nice and warm. No politics. I didn't bring up politics at all. And I know you're like, Cat, I don't believe you. No, I seriously did not bring up politics. And I was talking to this woman, she's a leftist, that later found out. And she was like, wait a second. She was like, yeah, they want to move to Florida. She goes, that governor is crazy down there. I don't like Ron DeSantis, okay? Everybody knows that I don't like Rhonda, but for totally different reasons than this leftist. So she said in Florida, what Ron DeSantis does, he gives tax breaks to the uber wealthy, and he is against the middle class, and he is against Disney, and he makes them pay uh, an exorbitant amount of taxes, and they pay way too many taxes, and he's been attacking Disney there in Florida, and that's just not right. So yes, she had these two thoughts right back to back. The thing about Disney, and then also not taxing the wealthy. So Disney, you and I both know that Disney has not been paying taxes for years, okay? Because there's an actual act. I forget the name of the act, but Disney, they don't pay taxes. They have incentives and things like that. But she was pro Disney. She was like so excited about Disney, and she was upset that Ron DeSantis lately has been making them pay taxes and has been stern with Disney and saying, "Hey, you have to follow the rules like everybody else." And yeah, I mean, when I was talking to her, I mean, just couldn't believe that she had those those same thoughts. She goes, "Ron DeSantis is against the middle class, and he doesn't tax the uber wealthy." And then she was upset because Ron DeSantis is making the Disney Corporation pay their fair share when it comes to taxes. Like, Disney is uber wealthy, not lately because they suck and they might actually go bankrupt, who knows, but they've been losing a lot of money because they're woke films and people don't like it. But in the same breath, she had these two thoughts, and I just was thinking to myself, man, this woman watches way too much MSNBC. So you've probably seen firsthand the damage that MSNBC can do to a person's mind. Okay, I saw it firsthand yesterday. You know, I was having an interaction with this wonderful woman, and then all of a sudden she starts talking about Ron DeSantis and Florida, and I was just like, she became really unhinged. And Joe Scarborough here, you guys are gonna, this is gonna blow your mind. So TDS is a real thing. If you have seen this, then you're probably aware of this toxic phenomenon known as TDS. It's Trump derangement syndrome. And people who watch MSNBC typically get this syndrome. And the syndrome holds on to this belief that Donald Trump will one day morph into Hitler. And it's not only a very real thing to them, or real thing. TDS is a very real thing. I'm not joking here. Okay, Trump derangement syndrome is a real disease. It's a syndrome, and it's contagious. And MSNBC exacerbates it. And Joe Scarborough, he actually made some very ominous predictions here, and I gotta share these with you. The Morning Joe. He's made some very ominous predictions on how things would play out if Donald Trump gets a second term. And let's just say, you know, at the very least, this is unhinged, and I'm worried about Joe. I hope that he's okay. And I definitely think he needs some help with his TDS.
Have a responsibility to really to tune out the voices of the haters, of the people that are constantly double
shilling
and triple checking and shilling for him and suggesting that somehow they're being biased, bending over backwards, treating him like a normal candidate. He's not a normal candidate. He is running to end American democracy as we know it. He's an authoritarian who a court in Colorado 2 days ago ruled that he led an insurrection against the United States government. He's charged with leading schemes to help overthrow the United States government. So if they want to frame it that way, that's fine. If you want to be fair, then you will frame this as Joe Biden being the candidate that supports American democracy, and Donald Trump, a candidate who supports a new form of government here that's authoritarian. It's really that simple. And by the way, Reverend Al, when people go, oh, you can't compare him to past Nazi leaders. You can't compare him to this past Nazi leader or that past fascist leader because he hasn't done that. Well, what hasn't he done? He hasn't done the things that the American judicial system did not allow him to do last time, but may very well allow him to do this time, or a judicial system that will be ignored by Donald Trump and ran over by Donald Trump to create the greatest constitutional crisis of our lifetimes. Just because he hasn't done it yet doesn't mean he won't do it when he gets a chance to do it. And if he is voted into office, then a lot of these people that are talking about literal or figurative or whatever the hell they're saying, you're going to look like idiots because he will get away with, he will imprison, he will execute whoever he's allowed to imprison, execute, drive from the country. Just look at his past. It's not really hard.
Oh, Joe, honey, you got to go get some help for that TDS, because the left, they equate nationalism to fascism and Nazism. Hence, they believe Trump is Hitler. The Morning Joe started by focusing on comparing Trump's politics to fascism. And Scarborough, he went from 0 to 100 real quick. Okay. He goes on and then he says, and you heard it there, he's running to end American democracy as we know it. And then he goes even further and he says, just because Trump hasn't done it yet it doesn't mean he won't do it when he gets a chance to do it. And then his evidence here of saying Trump is going to execute all of these people, he's going to drive them away from the country, he's going to incarcerate them. His evidence here is, quote, he might do it because he hasn't done it yet, but he could do it. Makes sense, doesn't it? And of course, Scarborough, he predicted that Trump would do this to all of his political opponents if he had his way. He'd imprison them. He'd imprison whoever he's allowed to imprison, and then he'd execute people, and then he'd drive people away from the country. And then he says, just look at his past. It's really not that hard to read. Again, the only thing that stood between him and the destruction of American democracy was this federal judiciary. The lack of self-awareness is extremely infuriating. There was one correct thing he did talk about here in this clip. He says that there's a reason why we have separation of powers. Our system was intended to be set up that way to prevent a dictator from taking over. That said, this sort of perpetual outrage and unhinged fear-mongering is the last thing journalists should be doing if they intend to attract moderate voters. This is outrageous. To sit there and say that Trump is going to execute people is absurd. And the closest thing we've ever had to a dictator is actually Joe Biden, because he's actually imprisoned and executed political dissidents. Okay, look at Matthew Perna. Okay, now he didn't hang him publicly, but Matthew Perna believed that he was going to probably be hung publicly or be imprisoned for a lifetime, and he wound up killing himself. Joe Biden and the federal government here, whoever is in charge of jailing these J6ers, they have blood on their hands. The prosecutor has blood on his hands. Matthew Perna, he's just one of them. There are several J6ers who are imprisoned because they are political dissenters. They don't agree with Joe Biden. They didn't agree with the election, and they were jailed. So that's the closest thing we've got to a dictator so far here in America. I'm back next. It's Cities 92.9. Yeah, the closest thing we've got to a dictator is Joe Biden. 100%, that is the closest thing that we've got to a dictator. And he jailed Matthew Perna. Matthew Perna was supposed to only serve, 6 months for trespassing. And it's sad. You can actually see more footage of Matthew Perna on January 6th, where he's just kind of walking. The Capitol Police are there. They're not paying attention to Matthew Perna or to the people walking into the Capitol. They're pointing at things. They've got their phones up, taking pictures, live streaming, things like that. And Matthew Perna is walking, and the Capitol Police, they did nothing. They didn't seem bothered at all. And you would say, oh, yeah, if it was a violent insurrection, then the Capitol Police probably would be, cuffing people and fear of their life. They did not look like they were in fear of their life. If you're watching, go ahead, smash that like button. But Matthew Perna, he was supposed to only serve 6 months. Then the prosecutor comes out. He says, we're going to upgrade, or we're going to tack on a terrorism charge. And then Matthew Perna was looking at 20 years to life in prison. And Matthew Perna, that was pretty heavy. And he did not want to spend his time in prison, likely. And he killed himself. And that, my friends, that's fascism. That's being a dictator. And the closest thing we've ever had to a dictator here in America is Joe Biden. And whoever is pulling the strings of Joe Biden, okay? Whoever's behind the jailing of the J6ers, that this is the closest thing here in America, 2023. This is the closest thing that we've got to a dictatorship and to fascism. Jailing your political dissonance, jailing people like Douglas Mackey for sharing a meme about Hillary Clinton, that it was a disparaging meme. Douglas Mackey, he's looking at, I think it was like 7 months in prison or something like that, because he shared a meme, folks, on Twitter. And there's a lot that goes into that. There was actually Hillary Clinton campaign. David Brock of Media Matters actually headed up this campaign. I think he spent like $2 million to try to get some social media traction for Hillary Clinton, because this is the first time where, Hillary Clinton, she had the mainstream media, she had the cable network TV stations all on her side, okay, in 2016. But she was still like not polling as high as you would think. And she wasn't getting the support. And yet Donald Trump was still keeping up with her despite the media being on her side. This was confusing, baffling for the Hillary Clinton campaign. So they launched something. Oh gosh, I think it was Correct the Record is what that campaign was called. And look this up. I mean, it was $1 million campaign, and Hillary Clinton's guys, they worked to try to launch Hillary Clinton into some sort of social media campaign. They used a bunch of money to try to get her elevated on social media. People talking about her on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, because that's how Donald Trump won. It was social media. It was the people using the public square, using the platform to share ideas about Donald Trump and to get Donald Trump's ideas out there. And the people actually were the reason why Donald Trump won, was because they were campaigning for him on social media, essentially. And he ran one of the most grassroots campaigns I've ever seen. And this was, and it's still going on. Okay. Donald Trump's grassroots campaigning. I mean, it's just incredible how he is able to pull this off. And Hillary Clinton's team, they just couldn't wrap their heads around it. So actually, Douglas Mackey, he was a huge guy in 2016 with the memes and things like that. And he actually ran, interference, I guess. He interfered with this Hillary Clinton campaign to try to elevate her on social media. It was called Correct the Record. And he actually kind of destroyed a lot of that with his memes. And he was a troll, basically, for their social media campaign. Douglas Mackey answered to his political dissent, and he's now sitting in jail, Douglas Mackey. So, yeah, this is the closest thing that we've ever seen to fascism. It wasn't under Donald Trump where we were jailing people. Show me one person that was jailed or tossed off of a ballot. Yeah, so this is the closest thing to fascism. So the closest thing to fascism is what we've got in office right now. He's the closest thing to a dictator that we've ever had in America. That's Joe Biden, and whoever his handlers are. I don't even really know who's really pulling the strings here. But he's jailing political dissonance. He's jailing people who don't think like he does or don't think like they do. This is the closest thing that we've had to fascism. We weren't jailing political opponents in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. We weren't jailing people that didn't agree with Donald Trump. Trump had the chance to do that. He was in office, right? He had the chance to jail people and to execute people like Scarborough is fear-mongering, and he's trying to say that Donald Trump will do in the future if he's reelected to a second term here. But I'm sorry, Douglas Mackey, Matthew Perna. I mean, there's so many other people that have been jailed under this Biden administration and under Joe Biden's presidency. And this is the closest thing to fascism that I've ever seen, that you've ever seen here in America. I do want to get to the White House because now the White House is out there and they're like, oh, Thanksgiving meal prices are lowered. Then the facts and reality, they get into the way of the White House claims here. And I'm going to break it down because I'm going to debunk what the White House claimed here yesterday, Kieran Jean-Pierre in the White House press conference. That's next. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. We are going to be getting to Michelle Blessant. Michelle Blessant is out of Bloomington here. And I mean, we've placed an inquiry with the Illinois Department of Corrections to try to verify any kind of protocol they might have when it comes to transgenders and where we're supposed to house them. But McLean County Sheriff Matt Lane, he was on the phone with me and he said, the IDOC, they don't really have a playbook on what I should be doing. And he goes, "Look, I'm going to defer to, you know, my judgment. And at this point, I think that it's best that he be housed alone, not in the female population or the male population, but he's going to be housed by himself." And we both, and he says that Blessant has agreed to that, um, to be housed by himself. Brant Parsley of the Bloomington Police Department did say at a time in April, when he was first arrested, Michelle Blessant, that they were going to treat the arrest as a woman. This is explains why the press release referred to James Blessant as a woman. Now he changed his name to Michelle Blessant legally. He did do that. So we're going to chat about that here on the Morning Buzz. Here we go. Michelle Blessant. So, news just in, this trans-identified male, alleged pedophile, being housed by himself. So he's not being housed with the female inmates or the male inmates here in McLean County. He's at the McLean County Jail. He's being housed by himself. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. And as always, I'm live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You can see me there. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. That really helps me out, folks. That's Cat Peterson 929. It's real easy to go subscribe. We're going to talk about this Bloomington trans-identified male. He's an alleged pedophile. I do also want to hit the couple of stories here where the White House actually lied. And I want to debunk their lies here in real time. The White House is claiming that they lowered Thanksgiving meal prices. Then the facts and reality get in the way of this. I'm going to bring you the facts and the reality. The White House, they opened up their press conference. Kira Jean-Pierre, who's Black and lesbian, she's the press secretary. She opens up her press conference claiming that the White House actually lowered Thanksgiving meal prices. That's just not totally true. So we're going to talk about it here coming up in just a little bit. But first, Michelle Blessant, let's talk about it. Spoke with Sheriff Matt Lane yesterday. Asked him, you guys were asking me, and I was like, okay, let me try to figure it out. The female inmates or the male inmates? Where is he being housed? Is he in with the females? Is he in with the males? Well, turns out he's being housed by himself. The IDOC, the Illinois Department of Corrections, you go on their website, you try to find any kind of their protocols, their playbook when it comes to transgender individuals, incarcerated transgender individuals. How do you imprison them? Do you keep them in with their biological sex? In this case, his name is James. Well, he legally changed it to Michelle Blessant. He started that process in July of 2022. He officially got his name changed in December of 2022. And then he was arrested in April of 2023. Those were the original charges. Recently, November, I think it was 15th or something like that, they tacked on a few other charges. I did find out that those were for the original victim. So they're charging him with like 8 counts of predatory criminal sexual assault of a victim under the age of 13. This is just terrible. And then they tacked on another charge of grooming. They tacked on another charge of exploitation of a child. And, a lot of people were confused. They were like, wait a second, is this guy a woman? Is this guy a man? Uh, because the Bloomington police, as we found out back in April, we talked with Brant Parsley of the Bloomington police. He's the public information officer. He said that the department is going to treat the arrest like a woman because that's how Blessant identifies. He admitted that. That's why in the press release, he's referred to as a woman and makes no mention that he was born James, makes no mention that he's a trans-identified individual. They just refer to him as a woman and as Michelle. So Matt Lane, I asked him, why is he being housed by himself? He goes, well, there's no protocol from the Illinois Department of Corrections. We have no idea I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. So I'm going to do what I think is right. And at this point, I think that it's right for him to be housed by himself, not only for the 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 safety of Blessant, but also the safety of other inmates. So he said he's going to be housed alone. And Blessant, according to Lane, has agreed to be housed alone. So at this point, it is by choice. Blessant wants to be housed alone, and they are allowing him to be housed alone. Uh, and you're right. He's so right, Sheriff Matt Lane. And I talked about this a little bit yesterday. Here's my take on the whole thing. Uh, if he were to be housed with the men, typically those who commit crimes like this, and I'm not saying he has yet, he hasn't been convicted, and the Bloomington Press Police makes it very clear that, everybody's innocent until proven guilty, and I get that. Allegedly, right, he committed these crimes, and if you're housed in Gen Pop, if you're housed in with the males, um, you know, um, I don't know if he'd be safe in there because, those types of crimes, when you sexually assault children, um, even in prison, you might get beat up for that. Even in prison or even in jail, um, you might get beat up for that kind of thing. So I would imagine that, Blessant here, James Blessant, Michelle, I would imagine that he understands that. And at least some extent, I think he understands that, it'd be very dangerous for him to be housed with the men. And he knows that a lot of people would not want him to be housed with the women given the nature of his crime, and being that he is large in stature and as this natural born testosterone is probably has way more muscle density and bone density, stronger bone density than the females. He could really hurt a woman if he wanted to, in jail. So Matt Lane said that he does not want to risk Michelle Blesson's safety or anyone else's. And Lane says, "I don't know if he'd be safe, in custody at the McLean County Jail if he was housed with the men or if he was housed with the women." So at this point, um, Sheriff Matt Lane, I think that this is it's a good move. Uh, but what we need to do is look at other counties. What are they doing? What are other counties doing in the state? The Illinois Department of Corrections really needs to come out with a playbook, and they need to make that known to people, so that way uh, people know, you have loved ones in jail. I mean, I've had family members who have gone to prison, who have gone to jail, and you want them to be safe. And I do think that the McLean County Jail, I mean, it is a Hilton in comparison to other jails that I've seen, other jails that I've been to. And it's a very nice facility. In fact, one of the rooms actually looks like where they go and they learn, they have classes and things like that. It actually looks like what my college classroom looked like, when I was going to school at ISU. Like, they had this big TV, they had the nice chairs and the nice tables, and I was like, "Man, this kinda looks like a college classroom." Um, like I said, Blessant, he was originally arrested, in April of 2023. He was held in custody at the McLean County Detention Facility. His bond, he was held on a $1 million bond. Since then, they've tacked on some more charges. And look, this isn't the first run-in with Blessant, or run-in with the police that Blessant has had. He's had several traffic violations, and amidst his traffic violations, there was one where he was driving on a suspended license, and then there was this case in 2014, Anthony Blessant. Now, that's a family member. He was a victim in this domestic case. Now, the case was dismissed because Michelle Blessant uh, he was never prosecuted in that domestic battery case because the victim declined to prosecute. I don't know who Anthony Blessing is in relation to Michelle or James, but court records and social media history, it shows that Blessing is actually a father, and he was actually pursued also by child support enforcement in 2014. So he wasn't paying his child support, and he was ordered to provide assistance by a court after a paternity. After paternity was established. So there was paternity established, and James Blessing still didn't pay his child support. So child support enforcement came after him in 2014, So he's no stranger to this thing with the run-in with the police, but yeah, it's tragic. Now, one thing I wanted to point out, a report from Redx. So Redx is actually an incredible publication where they are pro-female and pro-child. So they focus on pro-female, pro-children stories, and they are actually kind of like a feminist publication, not like a feminazi, but like feminist, like actual like women's protections and protecting children and protecting women. So they actually picked this story up, and I didn't know this, but Eric Anderson, who, if you look on social media, he's got some mutual friends or some friends here in the community. Jan Lancaster is one of them. Um, Jan Lancaster, if you guys don't know, she runs the Bistro, I think, or something in downtown Bloomington, like a gay bar or something like that. And Eric Anderson, who lives in Bloomington, according to his social media, he actually publicly posted this comment, and he blasted the Bloomington police for, quote, allowing transphobic and insulting comments to be made about the alleged pedophile Michelle Bless. Imagine defending an alleged pedophile. I couldn't bring myself to do it. Okay, I mean, Eric Anderson, living in Bloomington, he posted to the comment section of the press release on the Bloomington Police Facebook page, and he says, he blasts the Bloomington Police. You allowed transphobic and insulting comments to be made here, and you're not censoring some of these comments. So yeah, that's Eric Anderson, and yeah, that's that story. I mean, so he's being housed alone, and I think the big thing here is the Illinois Department of Corrections. They need to come out, and JB needs to come out, and he needs to say that, hey, this is the protocol. I would imagine that the IDOC is going to come out eventually and say that their protocol is however they identify, you house them, because we live in the state of Illinois. We live in the state of Illinois. It's woke. It's blue state. Most likely, they're going to house men in female prisons, and that's just going to be our reality here in Illinois. The IDOC, I think, has tossed. They kind of tossed this down the field there because they know how controversial that is. If you or somebody has somebody in a jail or in a prison and they're female, right? You probably are not going to be too happy if there's males in that population as well. The females could get really hurt. These are criminals. Okay. And when you start to house male criminals with female criminals, it's a recipe for disaster. So yeah, it's on the Department of Corrections at this point. They need to come out, and they just need to be honest with people. And if they want to come out and say that, hey, our protocol is that you house transgender individuals based on the way they identify, then come out and say that. But I'll tell you right now, that is a loser. That is a loser. And Governor J.B. Pritzker will be tossed off that ballot faster than he can say Governor J.B. Jellybean. Okay. Faster than you can say J.B. Pritzker for 2026. There is nothing that will destroy a campaign faster than coming out and actually campaigning for transgender individuals to be housed according to their identity in prison. Okay, I actually got to take a quick break, but going to talk about the White House, how they claimed that they lowered Thanksgiving meal prices. That's not true. Facts, reality, I've got them all. And I'm going to bring it to you here on The Buzz. You can see me live in studio. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I'm back next. The IDOC needs a mental health lockup. Yes, that would be awesome. Actually, in fact, that was a big thing that Governor J.B. Pritzker came under fire for because during the pandemic, they kind of took away these mental health facilities, these huge state-run facilities. And Sheriff Matt Lane, and I believe maybe it was even John Sandage at the time, he came in and he actually discussed how terrible this was for the McLean County Jail, because they were having to house very psychotic people and people who need certain medications to administer that medication. You need to be a professional. And actually, what JB did, they shut down all of these state run facilities, and we've clogged up our county jails. People who are, definitely not equipped to handle somebody that is that far gone mentally. And they they decided to clog up our jails with those types of people instead of send them to a state-run facility, and that's what Governor JB Pritzker has done. I'd have to do some digging. I'm gonna look that story up, and I'm gonna bring that to you guys because that was huge. That was a big story. And the Department of Human Services, the Illinois Department of Human Services, I think they were actually suing the governor for this decision to shut down those state-run facilities. So I'm back in just a couple of minutes. Just hang out, smash the like button if you're watching. That would greatly help me out. And we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Okay. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Found that story. A lot of these stories start to blend together over time. It's just the crazy just continues. So at the time, there was a bunch of sheriffs. The Sangamon County Sheriff, actually, Jack Campbell, he was the one who filed this lawsuit against the Illinois Department of Human Services, and McLean County Sheriff's Office is about to do the same. So this was at the time, oh gosh, this was in 2022, July. Um, in 2022. So they were suing the governor and Grace Howe for violating state law. So state law regarding the transport of inmates into a department's custody. So section 10417 of the Illinois Criminal Code says that there has to be a 20-day period where the IDHS is supposed to come in and accept jail inmates who are unfit to stand trial into its custody, and they're supposed to ship them out to these state-run facilities. There are 7 state-run facilities, psychiatric facilities, and Campbell said that throughout the state, more than 100 inmates found unfit to stand trial are awaiting transport. So this was back in 2022. And since Governor JB Pritzker issued this executive order where they don't have to, so this I think was a COVID executive order, and they were suing the governor. This executive order says that they didn't have to abide by that 20-day placement mandate. And this was interesting because the Illinois Department of Human Services guy, the Grace Howe, was actually found in contempt. Sandage said that the county is eating unnecessary monetary costs. Governor J.B. Pritzker, this executive order hurt a lot of county jails. So, yeah, this is a big deal. This was a big deal, and it just goes to show that he doesn't really care about the prisoners. They'll sit there and virtue signal and say that they care about these people. They care about transgender inmates. If the IDOC were to come out and say, oh, we care about the mental health of transgender individuals. No, you don't. Transgender prisoners. No, you don't, because if you did care about the mental health of prisoners, then you would have not issued this executive order that destroyed um, uh, eh, prisoners' lives. So it's really JB's fault why, um, or it's really JB who doesn't care about the mental health of inmates. Good morning. I was telling folks on the stream, somebody messages on the YouTube channel and they're like, Kat, the IDOC, they really need a mental health lockup. So they actually do have mental health lockups. And, I'm waiting on the IDOC. I bet they are going to eventually come out with a protocol on how to house transgender inmates. People who identify as transgender, are they going to be housed with males? If they're a biological male, are they going to be housed how they identify, or are they going to be housed based off biology? So they have to come out with something, because more and more people are going to start to, like, I believe James Blessant here, Michelle Blessant. I don't really believe that he has gender dysphoria. I don't know. I have no idea. But it makes sense, being that he is charged with 8 counts of sexual predatory assault against somebody who's under the age of 13. Yeah, and it's not me saying that he won't be saved. Sheriff Matt Lane said that he probably won't be safe in male population, uh, given the nature of his crime, right? Even prisoners have moral standards, okay? And you might get beat up. Um, and if you identify yourself as a woman, right? I mean, yeah, I don't know if he'd be safe, okay, in this male population. And Sheriff Matt Lane also, says I don't know if he'd be safe. So there's got to be some sort of protocol that the IDOC is going to have to come out with. And I like this text because they said the IDOC, they need a mental health lockup, which, perhaps we start sending transgender inmates to these state-run facilities. So there are 7 state-run psychiatric facilities, and the reason why I know that is because Governor J.B. Pritzker actually had an executive order in place where you didn't have to abide by this 20-day period for the IDHS to come over and to get inmates who were unfit to stand trial to ship them out to these state-run facilities. So this happened in 2022, and I bring this up because JB and the like, they don't care about the mental health of these inmates. They don't. The people like Matt Lane care about the mental health of these inmates. They care about the physical well-being of these inmates. The correctional officers care. Uh, and people like JB and Democrats don't. Okay, so they're going to sit there and they're going to say that, yeah, we need to help transgenders, and we need to get them into, they need to be housed according to their identity, because that's going to benefit their mental health. No, 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 no. JB, and the reason why I say JB and the Illinois Department of Human Services don't care about the mental health of inmates is because they actually had this executive order in place, and it was in violation of state law. So state law says that there's a 20-day period where the IDHS is supposed to accept jail inmates who are unfit to stand trial into its custody, the IDHS custody, and they're also supposed to accept inmates who are guilty by reason of insanity. So then they take those inmates and then they ship them out to these state-run facilities that have the capacity to administer mental health drugs, medications. So Sheriff John Sandage, a couple of years ago, well, a year or so ago in 2022, he talked about how there was an actual lawsuit against the Illinois Department of Human Services, uh, filed by Jack Campbell of Sangamon County, and Sheriff Matt Lane was about to do the same at the time in 2022. And I believe he did. I believe that he hopped onto that lawsuit, but there were several sheriffs who hopped onto this lawsuit because they were sick and tired of JB violating state law and not giving a damn about the mental health of these inmates. So the mental health of these inmates were at stake. They were clogging up the county jails because they're not equipped. The county jail is not equipped to take care of these people who are psychotic and need psychiatric facility care, a different type of care. They can't stand trial. They're guilty by insanity, and um, you know, uh, at the time they said that they weren't going to. I think it was an executive order around COVID time, and he kept renewing this executive order where they weren't shipping out these people to these mental health facilities. So this texter, they said IDOC needs a mental health. We have one. They have one. Maybe that is the protocol here. Maybe we take the transgender individuals and we ship them to the state-run facilities, the psychiatric facilities, and get them the help they need. Who knows? I don't know what's going to happen. I don't believe that James Blessant, Michelle Blessant, just given, I mean, you're 33 years old, and then magically at the age of 32, you say that you're a woman. And I don't know if he was under investigation at the time or how this came to happen, where in 2022, July, he started filing to try to change his name to Michelle. Then in December, he officially changed his name. And then in April, he was indicted on all of these sexual predator charges. I don't know. It's just kind of a quick timeline for me. And perhaps he is pretending to be a woman so that way he gets preferential treatment and can avoid being housed in the male prison. I don't know. I do want to talk a little bit about the White House and how they've claimed to lower the Thanksgiving meal prices, because the facts are kind of getting in the way on this one. So the White House press secretary, Karen Jean-Pierre, she opened up Monday's briefing with this whipping out of a menu of Thanksgiving staples and claiming that the 2023 menu for Thanksgiving is actually one of the cheapest Thanksgivings ever. So the best accomplishments of the Biden administration was, of course, lowering the cost of 4th of July by 16 cents a couple of years ago. And they've got a similar accomplishment, which is this Thanksgiving. So here's what she said at the press conference, and it's just wild to me. She goes, while inflation has caused by the pandemic and Russia's war continues to be a challenge, we have seen important progress. Just in time for holiday travel, gas prices are $1.70 from their peak. Airline tickets are down 13% over the last year. And car rentals are down 10%. So she says all of this, and she blames inflation, of course, on Russia. Of course, it has everything to do with Russia and COVID and nothing to do with Bidenomics. Duh. The menu pointed out here, and she shares this menu with the press, and she points out that the frozen peas are down by 1.1%. That's considered a win for this administration. But really, who are you going to believe? Karen Jean-Pierre's menu that she shared with the press, or your wallet? Because forget the cheaper fuel when you can have cheaper peas, right? Who cares about cheaper fuel when you can have cheaper peas? Now, the average cost of a Thanksgiving meal for 10 people in 2023 is $61.17, which is 4.5% cheaper than 2022's cost of $64.05. Okay. So it's only down by like $3. However, this is still up by 14.7% from 2021. At 2021 price for 10 people, it was $53.31, and it's up 25% from 2019. Now, this is according to a report published by the American Farm Bureau Federation. Basically, this is their way of doing math. Increase prices by 200%, then lower them by 10%, and that's what we're going to consider cheaper. You've increased prices astronomically. It's absurd. It's absurd. This is about as absurd as the left continually trying to claim that Trump's economy had nothing to do with Trump, and that it was all inherited from. It was all because he inherited it from Obama. This is the same logic, just a different day, or lack thereof logic. But the American Federation, or the American Farm Bureau Federation, did not attribute any of this to what Biden has done, actually. So the reason why your Thanksgiving dinner might be $3 cheaper than what it was the year before, it's because turkey prices have fallen thanks to a sharp reduction of cases of this avian influenza, this bird flu, which have allowed production to increase in time for the holiday season. So there's been a decrease in this aviation flu. So it has nothing to do with the Biden administration. It has everything to do with this aviation flu, influenza. or avian flu, avian flu. So yeah, I mean, I can't with these people. I doubt bragging about the second most costly Thanksgiving meal will land the Dems more votes. You know, this just proves how out of touch they are. This is the second most expensive Thanksgiving meal in 38 years, and the White House is pretending that somehow this is a good thing. Anyway, how do you plan to spend your $3 in saving? I don't know what I'm going to do with all of that money. $3. Gosh, I mean, I could do so much with $3 in savings. I'm back next. We do have to chat a little bit about a transgender soccer player. He shattered really, a female player's knee. And get this, the transgender soccer player is now claiming victimhood and because the girls don't want to face him anymore. They fear for their safety. They say, we don't want to play against this guy because he shattered this girl's kneecap. And now he's claiming victimhood because the girls don't want to play against him anymore. Yes, I've got that story next. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. If you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, we're going to be talking with David about Republicans. What are they doing? I talked about this a lot yesterday. Ron DeSantis has even considered tossing Joe Biden off of the ballot in the state of Florida. I think that a lot of states that we have control over, Republican states, what needs to start to happen is those Republican governors and Republican lawmakers actually start to push for things like tossing Joe Biden off of the ballot. And you're like, yeah, what would we toss Joe Biden off of the ballot for? Oh, treason. Uh, because he actually took bribes from foreign governments and foreign countries, foreign adversaries, actually, China. So, yes, I think that there is this ability to toss Joe Biden off of that ballot. We just have to have Republicans who are willing to do that. And I'm tired of this. My principles, my principles, my principles. Shut up about your principles. If you can't do the job, if you can't do what needs to be done, then get out of there. Good morning. It's the Morning Buzz. You can see me live in studio. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Joining me live in studio, that's David Paul Blumenshine right over there. Good morning, David. How are you?
Hey, Kat, I can't hear you over here.
Oh,
I mean, I can hear you, but I can't hear you. There you go. Oh, hey. I like it when I can hear you. Now I can hear
okay.
myself.
All
You know, at
righty.
my age, Kat, sometimes you got to hear yourself because, you know, you're losing your hearing.
You gotta hear yourself. So it's really funny when David's over here and he's operating his board. There's a little headphone nozzle, and you can turn the headphone nozzle. I keep mine at about like 7 or 8, and David keeps his at about like 3.
Yeah, I'm trying to preserve the hearing into my senior years because, you know, that's part of the program. I'm headed towards my senior years, whether I like it or not. But you know what? I don't believe that I am actually 60. I feel like I'm more like 40.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, David, keeping yourself up and
Yes.
biking and all of that. I mean that contributes to how you feel.
Putting
And
Celtic salt a little granular in your water every morning
yeah,
when you drink water.
that's what I do. I've actually got pre-workout. I drink it because it's got way more caffeine in it than like a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So I can just kind of chug this, and then I don't have to drink so much coffee because usually I drink about like 3 or 4 cups of coffee. But I got the pre-workout, and all I need is like a half a scoop of a pre-workout in my water, and that keeps me going. Energizer Rever.
You
Right?
are like I came into studio this morning. I said, "Cat is bright-eyed and bushy-tailed," as the old saying
Yeah.
goes.
Well, and I'm thankful. I'm thankful for Cities 92.9. I'm thankful for David. I'm thankful for the breath in my lungs. And
Yes.
it's the time to give thanks. Holiday season.
I shouldn't probably use that analogy. I guess is an analogy, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, because I think that actually refers to deer.
Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was squirrels that it referred to, actually.
Oh, I don't
I'm
know
not
because
sure.
it's deer hunting season, you know, show us your game. And I just was wondering those white-tailed deer out there are
Mhm.
running across the countryside.
Yeah, speaking of which, show us your game, Cities 92.9. We're teaming up with Bloomington Meats for Show Us Your Game 2023. Submit a picture of yourself of yourself and your game. So your deer, your buck. And you get a chance to win 1 free deer processing from Bloomington Meats. Now, what you're going to want to do is do that right away because we are going to select a winner randomly on December 29th. Show off your trophy bucks, pheasants, quails, and ducks. And good luck. Happy hunting. Let's show us your game. So, David, we've got to talk a little bit about something that I wanted to talk a little bit about this morning was Republicans. So, yesterday I talked a lot about how Ron DeSantis he is not tossing Joe Biden off of the ballot. And people are like, whoa, Kat, our principles are principles. How could you say that Ron
Civility,
DeSantis should do that?
decorum, you know.
Yeah.
Whoa, get old Bernie Sanders out there for decorum. When I can't remember senator, is it Senator Kelly? I don't remember. Senator, you know, the MMA fighter gets up and says, hey, let's just do, you know, bottom line is this: the Democrats are utilizing every instrument and tool they can to disrupt the election of 2024. And the Republicans are sitting back on their, you know,
On their haunches.
Yeah.
They're sitting back on their haunches.
no,
They're
on
not
their, on
doing
their
anything.
bottoms, on their bottoms, and they refuse to get out of their seats.
Yes.
And this is why there's a branding problem with the Republican Party, is because Trump is out there fighting for America. I mean, right now, if you don't realize the desperate state that we're in, obviously, Dan Bongino and Dinesh D'Souza came out with the police state, to realize they have weaponized the entire government against their political opponents. They see what's happening. They saw what happened in Argentina. They see what's happening in Brazil. They know. I mean, in fact, the news comes out and reports they call them right-wing leaders, alt-right leaders. They didn't say alt-right. I'm saying that, but they might as well have said alt-right, fascist, Nazis. That's what they continue to label us as. Even
confusing.
Trump.
That's the thing, is that they confuse nationalism for Nazism. For I was talking about TDS this morning, the Joe Scarborough clip. It's insanity. I mean, the TDS on this guy is crazy. He says that Trump is going to imprison, execute whoever he is allowed to imprison. He's going to execute them. He's going to drive them away from the country. So, like,
because he did that when he was president before.
But that's the thing. He goes in and then he says, no, he hasn't done it yet. But that doesn't mean that he's not going to do it once he gets the chance to.
And that's what they're scared of?
Yeah.
Really? You know what I think they're scared of? I think they're scared of actually returning America to the civility that is guaranteed through the Constitution of the United States. They don't like the Constitution. I don't think they like America.
Yeah, well, they don't. And here's the thing, Joe Scarborough from MSNBC. We are closer to fascism under Joe Biden than we have ever been.
Yes.
In American history.
Yes.
And make no mistake, people are starting to see that all over the country, or all over the world. They're starting to see that Trump is international. Trump is global. People see, and they're worried that, hey, if this is going on in America, what's going to go on here? And and Douglas Mackey, he's been imprisoned, jailing your political opponents. Speaking of, you want to see that, Joe Scarborough. It's what's going on right now under the Biden administration. Joe Biden has done it and will continue to do it if he gets reelected for a second term, because he jailed, Douglas Mackey. They went after Mark Hook, with the pro board, or he was pro life. They've gone after the J6ers. They've jailed those people for trespassing. You had somebody, David Paul, knock on your door. You had federal agents knock on your door. You just said 60s. At the time, right? January 6th, you had a hip replacement. And you were at a Cracker Barrel. And you didn't go in, but you had knocks on your door from the federal government there to question you about January 6th. Like, that doesn't get any more tyrannical than that. And it doesn't get any more fascist than that when you've got federal agents knocking on the doors, in some cases, busting down the doors of American citizens.
Joe Biden's 62. He said it the other day. And he also mentioned something about being at the Britney Spears concert or something like that.
Yeah, he mistaked Taylor Swift for Britney Spears. The bit was actually really good, the joke. So he was at this Thanksgiving pardoning of the turkey.
The turkey.
I guess they do that every year. And
the turkey was mic'd. I saw it on Dan Bongino's show.
The turkey was mic'd? Like, actually?
Well, it had something to say, the turkey did, to Joe Biden's pardon. It might have been something to the effect of, let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon. So, the joke was really, I thought it was a great joke, but he just delivered it completely wrong. So it was, it was harder to get a pardon as a turkey.
Yes.
Than it is to get Taylor Swift concert tickets.
Yes.
So, it's pretty hard to get Taylor Swift concert tickets.
Yeah, you're not getting to Taylor Swift's concerts. Yes.
Yes, and
well, Joe, you might be able to.
He just, like,
the sniffer in chief can probably get tickets to Taylor Swift.
Yes. She'll probably endorse him.
Yes.
But Cardi B won't endorse him. She made that
Oh,
very
no,
clear.
I saw that. Wow, she came out. She laid it down. If you could understand exactly what she was saying, I was a little confused, but hey, I'm sure many people do.
Yeah, she was getting her wires crossed. But he refers to Taylor Swift as Britney Spears.
Yes.
What's left of Britney Spears anyway?
Yes.
Because Britney Spears she's gone. She's no longer Britney Spears.
She's advertising for the Ginsu knife.
Yeah. Who's going to be cutting my turkey this year? Britney Spears.
Oh gosh, she's got 2 knives. She can do it.
Knives.
And she'll do a dance too.
I mean, entertainment and dinner.
Yes.
Dinner and a show.
Yeah.
With Britney Spears.
Yeah.
I would want her carving my turkey. All right, folks, we're going to be back on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. David Paul Blumenshine joining me in studio. If you're watching, smash the like button and subscribe to both our YouTube channels. Mine is Cat Peterson 929 and David's is The DPB Show.
Yes.
So just find it on YouTube, hit the subscribe button.
You might have to go to David Paul Blumenshine. It seems to be that DPB is kind of famous.
Yeah.
I hope to make it more famous.
Yeah. You might have to type in David Paul Blumenshine.
Show.
And then maybe type in like Cities 92.9 as well.
Yes.
So you'll find it. You'll find it. If not, go to our website. It's right there, cities929.com.
Or go to Kevin Ferris's show and try to link to my show from his.
Yeah. You can go ahead and subscribe to Kev Ferris's show as well.
Speechless. Ty Smith. Don't forget about
Ty Smith, the Modern Renaissance Man. We've got a lot of programming here, and it is pointless if you guys aren't subscribing to it.
Yeah.
So,
well, but that's part of what we're talking about today is that, the Republicans, the Republican media, every now and then, Levin, I think, does a good job of pointing out the inconsistencies of what they're doing to President Trump. Bongino obviously does it. Beck does it. Hannity does it a little bit. But there should be an ultimate revolt, rebellion against what is happening right now during an election cycle to a nominee of the Republican Party. Every candidate running for the Republican ticket should be lambasting the Biden administration over what they're doing.
Yes.
And they're not.
And I think it needs to even go a step further. Republicans everywhere should be getting petitions together, should be getting things together to knock Joe Biden off of the ballot.
Yes.
Across the nation, because that's what they're doing to Donald Trump. You have got to do what needs to be done. Where this is not cutesy talk, it's wartime. It's wartime. And, maybe like the soft Republicans, as I like to call them, the rhinos, maybe you are great in peacetime. Maybe you can negotiate a contract. Maybe you can write speeding tickets. I don't know. Do all the cutesy stuff. Maybe you're a great leader when it comes to that. But this is wartime. And if you're not willing to step up and do what needs to be done, then you need to get on out of there.
Adam Kinzinger considers himself a diplomat to bring the parties together. I guess that means he's a soft Republican. I don't know. Might have to ask somebody else
Adam.
that might know better about that.
I'm never going to forget that clip of him crying on January 6th.
Oh.
I mean, that has not aged well at all.
No.
He's crying about on the January 6th committee and just everything. I mean, he should really be Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. What needs to happen is they need to be criminally charged for what they've done.
Yeah.
And we need to jail them.
Did you see what President Trump had to say about Ronna
McDaniel?
Yeah. He's basically calling for her to resign.
Wow.
Or to get into gear. To get the party into line, because we've got a battle ahead of us. They're at war, we're trying to battle, amongst ourselves.
Yes.
They're at war and we're battling amongst ourselves.
They've waged war against us.
They've unequivocally, it is a war on democracy. I love that word because that's what they use. The Constitution of the United States in America.
Mhm.
That's what they are doing. And we're not responding. And that's what President Trump is asking. And he said, you need to turn all of your focus on ballot harvesting.
Mhm. Yeah.
And a campaign of gathering ballots.
Yeah.
If not, we're going to find ourselves exactly where we were at before.
And did you see DC Drano? Hang on, I'm going to pull up what he
Yeah, I
said
think I
on
might
Twitter.
have
It was great.
shared that.
About the election. I love him.
Well,
So,
I think I shared it on Dan's comment on our Cities 92 page.
I like this one. Okay, so Obama is quoted saying, "It's better for us when Democrats control the election counting."
Yes.
So he's
Yeah.
quoted saying that of
Yes.
Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris says, and she's quoted saying, "Election machines can be easily hacked." Joe Biden, he's quoted saying, "We have the biggest voter fraud organization in history."
Yes.
Time Magazine, their headline is, "Here's how Democrats forfeited the election."
Yeah.
Gateway Pundit, there's police report showing a Democrat activist filed 10,000 fake voter registrations in Michigan.
Yes.
2,000 Mules, you can go watch it. There's video evidence of people who are illegally harvesting millions of ballots in swing states. And then, we've got Republicans like myself and David, and we say, hey, we think there's election fraud here going on. And then the DOJ says, congrats, you're indicted, disbarred, deplatformed off of the internet, and we're going to send armed FBI agents. We're going to have them rummage through your wife's underwear drawer. That's what we're going to do. So that's where we're at, folks.
Yeah, he has another great quote on his Truth Social, DC does, that basically says a similar thing about all the election integrity stuff. But go ahead. I think we're going back on air.
We're going back on air. Woohoo! Only about a minute left, folks, of the 7 o'clock hour. Real quick, I'm going to share with you what I shared with our listeners on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble, David, Paul, and I. DC Drano, one of our favorite guys on Twitter. DC Drano actually shares out, just facts, figures. He quoted Barack Obama. This is
well,
quote.
The DC is a Nazi, a white supremacist, and what else is he? Let's see, mega extremist. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, from the MAGA extremists. Barack Obama is quoted saying, quote, "It's better for us when Democrats control the election counting." Barack Obama is quoted saying that. Kamala Harris is quoted saying, "Election machines can be easily hacked." Joe Biden, he's quoted saying, "We have the biggest voter fraud organization in history." Time Magazine, here's a headline. It says, "Here's how Democrats forfeited the election." Gateway Pundit, they published something. It's a police report actually showing a Democrat activist had filed 10,000 plus fake voter registrations in Michigan, in the state of Michigan. Then 2,000 Mules. If you watch that film, you'll see the video evidence of people illegally harvesting millions of ballots across the nation in these swing states. And then Republicans like David and myself, we say, there might be election fraud. And then the DOJ says, well, we're going to send some FBI agents to your door. We're going to arm them. We're going to deplatform you on the internet. We're going to indict you. And we're going to have the FBI agents rummage through your wife's underwear drawer. That's what we're going to do. So, I mean, here you have all of the evidence. I mean, they're saying it. They're saying that they commit voter fraud.
Yeah.
I mean, Barack Obama said it's better for us when Democrats control election counting.
When they're counting, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. We're back on the other side in the 8 o'clock hour. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. We're going to be back in just a couple of minutes. Woo! Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. David Paul Blumenshine joining me in studio. You can see him live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble. And subscribe to the David Paul Blumenshine Show on YouTube. You can also subscribe to my show. That's Cat Peterson 929.
And you can really see me because you turned the camera around because, you decided to sit down and where I'm standing up, and that way it made it just easy.
Mhm.
Now our audience over on the social media platform, they're not looking at Cat in the
Nope.
Morning Buzz. So
Nope.
no, this isn't by mistake. I've not taken over the Cat Peterson, the Morning Buzz.
Nope. But David is he's got a prettier face for I've got a face for radio. David's got a nicer face for TV. We were talking a little bit about DC Drano. I shared with you his tweet. Now Mike Lindell is actually out there. He's being vindicated of a lot of charges because he's proving that there was election fraud. And as you were telling me over the break, Cat, he's not ever going to truly be vindicated because they destroyed his life. They, in the public opinion,
to some degree.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think Mike Lindell kind of destroyed Bed Bath and Beyond.
Bed Bath and Broke.
Yes.
Yeah, the empty lot.
They thought it was pretty wokey to eliminate My Pillow from their stores, and one thing led to another, and you cut about half your business off, and suddenly you might have problems staying in business.
Yeah. Everybody.
I don't advise that as a business 101 move. Don't eliminate half of your customers.
Yeah. Don't eliminate half of your customers, and then don't stop taking such political stances like Bud Light, Bed Bath and Beyond. Why take such a political stance when you don't have to? That's what Kid Rock said on the Sean Hannity show.
Yeah.
He was like, "Look, I don't care what these people do, these transgender people. I don't care what Dylan Mulvaney does. My issue with it was, you're basically saying that it's okay for men to be in female spaces, and you're saying it's okay for a grown man to walk into a locker room of a young girl." And he said, "I'm not okay with that." And Bud Light should have stayed in their lane. And that's what he said on the Sean Hannity show. And it's like, Bed Bath and Beyond, you should have stayed in your lane. Why would you boycott My Pillow from being in your stores? It was a poor move. People love My Pillow. People love Mike Lindell.
If you're Smith and Wesson, you can take a position politically.
Smith and Wesson.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously the Democrats have been hell-bent on trying to eliminate firearms, right?
Yeah.
So they can take a more firm stance. Bed Bath and Beyond, as far as I know, everybody has cookware. Everybody gets pillows. Everybody gets towels. Everybody gets your product. There's a difference. It's interesting. You just said that the whole thing is about men in women's sports or women in men's sports. I remember young girls wanting to try out for high school football, and they have, right? There's been some young girls who decided they wanted to try, competing with the boys. And for the most part, they were able to, their freshman, sophomore year. But then it gets back and the positioning of what positions they play. They're not playing middle linebacker for the most part. Maybe they're the place kicker or they're line. I don't know. They're playing a position. What happens when you start the body structure starts to change? They're not going to be as competitive because once you get hit by a young boy who is starting to have a man's body and you're a female, I don't know, Kat.
Well, I broke my wrist. So I had a young boy in my PE class who was just, and we would have fun, right?
Yeah.
And I was in middle school and we would have fun. And we used to play this thing. It was called bleacher ball. and this young boy, I think it was just hell-bent on playing with me and having I think he liked me a little bit. And, he throws the bleacher ball. It's this big yoke ball, and the point of the game was you take the bleacher ball and you throw it, and it hits the bleachers. And the first team to get the ball to hit the bleachers, and you have, like, defense, and you're trying to whack the ball away from the bleachers. We had to stop playing the game because I actually got whacked in the head with the ball, and I fell back and I shattered my wrist on the side here because I fell back and I had to brace my fall, and my bone density just didn't keep up. I mean, I was a very, very small girl.
Yeah.
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 And this ball was like whipped at me like 100 miles per hour. And we're friends to this day. He's a good friend of mine. So I'm not upset. I healed and I'm totally fine now. Have a little bit of trouble at the range, actually. So if I'm holding a gun and I'm like pressing the gun, I can't do the teacup method.
Yeah.
I've got to really like choke up on the gun
Yes.
because it hurts my wrist.
Forever. Yeah.
Because you got to be pretty firm with that gun
When
'cause you don't want
bones
the
break, yes.
recoil. So
And that's my point, Kat, is that men tend to have a denser bone structure.
oh yeah,
That's biology 101. I'm not a biologist, but I'm smart enough to know common sense.
well, and you have lived experiences. So these girls on the high school team that you were talking about, they're there for maybe freshman, maybe sophomore year, and then they leave.
They're not going to the NFL.
No, they don't.
Could
go
you
to the NFL.
imagine, and once again, I understand it. I want young women to excel in any sport they would like. There isn't an NFL for women.
Yeah.
There's an NBA. But even in the WNBA,
hmm
I've yet to see a woman take off from the free throw line and slam dunk the ball.
It just won't happen. It won't.
I
And
mean,
that's
not to take
okay.
anything away. I like the competition. I like the teamwork. I like the passing. I like the different ways. And not to say that there aren't women that slam dunk
I
the
know
ball.
you don't watch the WNBA, right?
I don't.
Nobody does.
I used to watch it a little bit with my grandfather. He kind of really enjoyed the competition, and I do go and watch volleyball and women's volleyball. I love to watch it.
Mhm.
I don't seek it out, but I don't seek out men's sports either anymore. I mean, I'm so far past that. Part of the reason is because the entertainment business, the sporting business, has lulled us into this false sense of security.
Mhm.
And that's really what the bigger point is I don't know about you, Kat, but I feel like I'm at battle and
Mhm.
I'm at war
Mhm.
because I know that the Democrats have waged war against us. So when people ask me, David Paul, why are you out there as an activist every day working to get Trump back into office where he should have been for the last 3 years? Why are you out there on the streets knocking doors, getting petitions signed? Why are you taking on the establishment Republican Party as we know it? Because folks, we're in a bad place.
Yeah, it's wartime.
And if you don't see that, I mean, I get it. This civility, a kinder, gentler nation. No, folks, that's not what they're playing out there. That's not the rules of the game.
Mhm.
They have waged war on us.
Yeah, your principles are going to do nothing because here's the thing. I've been calling on Ron DeSantis, other states that have Republican control. What they need to start doing is tossing Joe Biden off of that ballot. They need to file challenges, file complaints against the Biden administration, say he's in violation of the 14th Amendment because we have evidence that he has taken bribes from foreign governments. Okay, that's factual. We're not disputing that anymore because that's true. There's plethora of evidence, and he actually might be in violation of the 14th Amendment. Donald Trump, we have seen the video. They're trying to say he
He had
incited that
classified
riot.
documents in 2, if not 3 different locations when he had absolutely no authority to have classified documents.
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden.
Yeah, because he's not the president. There's something called the Presidential Records Act. Donald Trump, he was in possession of classified information. That's
When
not
he had the
true.
ability to be in possession of classified. Joe has never had the authority until he was elected president. And all of this in possession of classified documents was before he was president.
Yes. Well, in the classified documents case, look no further than I think it was Bill Clinton in the underwear drawer or whatever, where he had all of these tapes, right? And he, in this case, I think it's 2012, Judicial Watch actually tried to go after Bill Clinton, I believe. And they tried to go after him because he had the sock drawer full of tapes with interviews or with conversations he's had with foreign governments and adversaries
Mhm.
and he was taping all of these and there was classified information on those tapes. He stored them in a sock drawer and that was like improper and he took them from the office.
Like selling secrets to the Chinese Communist Party.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know,
Well, that's
real crimes
yeah.
against our country. And you're right. It's a double standard.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when you have two different systems in place, one for me and one for thee.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where and you know, I point to the Presidential Records Act because in that case they were very clear. The judge, the I think it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, United States Supreme Court, and they laughed the guy out and they were like, dude, Presidential Records Act. And it was like unanimous, the voting. I'm pretty sure. I'd have to double check on that. But we've got to take a quick break. You're listening to Cities 92.9. We're going to come back. I do want to we were talking a little bit about the transgenders in sports. This is a story that's just in. This guy, he's a soccer player, and he shattered this female player's knee. He's a trans soccer player. And now he's gone and he's claimed victimhood in this case because the girls don't want to play against him anymore. So these teams have forfeited matches because they don't want to play against the guy. And now he's filing or considering filing a discrimination lawsuit because of the other players who selfishly prioritize their safety and their well-being. So
Let's have a trans league. I have no problem with it. Let's see if you can make it in a trans league. Have your own league.
Yes.
In every sport.
Yes.
And see if you can get enough people to get behind you and to, free market economy.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see if people will watch.
Yeah. Attend. I'm sure they will, but not to the level that I think they could sustain themselves.
Yeah. So we're going to get to that story here on the Morning Buzz. Also, hey, did I tell you guys? I don't think I've told you yet. You can go get a Christmas book. We're doing that for you. Now is the time to register. We're going to select winners right before Christmas time. You can go register to win a copy of Constitutional Sound Bites. That's by David Shostokis. David Shostokis, in that book, he answers questions about the document, the Constitution, and it's really easy to consume. I've read the book like 3 or 4 times. It's great. So go ahead, get that Christmas present from Cities 92.9. Go to cities929.com to register for your free book. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. If you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. We're going to be back in just a little bit. David Paul Blumenshine joining me in studio. David, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well, Kat. I'm listening to you in my ear, but that's a commercial.
Yes.
I shouldn't do
for
that.
our buzz line.
Yes. Wow.
Princeton Gun Show.
I was up in Princeton the other day. I said, gosh, maybe Kat and I should come up over the weekend.
You like Princeton? I've never been.
It's a cool little town. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I think it's definitely a pro 2A town.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they have this amazing gun show every year. And I think it's actually the 28th. I think it's this weekend.
Yeah. It is this weekend. 25th and 26th, right? 26th and 27th.
Yeah, I think so. Yep. The 25th through the 26th.
Yeah. 25th and 26th.
This weekend.
I listen to cities.
Woohoo! Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. David Paul Blumenshine joining me in studio this morning. David, how are you this morning?
Kat, I am ready for Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
And I know many of you are, and there's so much to be thankful for out there. I know that we get on rants, and it's really not a rant. We are realists. We are common sense, critical thinkers. We're looking around, we see what's happening. But I do agree that most people out there are just trying to live life. And this is a holiday that brings people together. I know that there will be people discussing different things during Thanksgiving. And I know that some folks, unfortunately, they're so eaten up over their ideologies in life that they can't bring themselves to sit down and have a meal without trying to virtue signal or to bring up their identity or bring up politics. You know, believe it or not, Kat, I don't talk about it a lot. You know, there's something called work out there. You got to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know that I'm going to be sitting down at my dinner table, and I'm blessed. God has blessed me with a family that has a like mind, and we can talk about politics and religion at the dinner table and still be okay with each other. I'm going to be wearing my MAGA hat at the dinner table, and I suggest you do too, especially if you've got a leftist in your midst, because that will really get the TDS going.
That'll trigger them.
Just Alex Jones.
Maybe they won't stay for dessert.
Just sit there and say, the frogs are gay. The frogs are gay.
Right.
And just be Alex Jones at the dinner table. Yeah. But we were talking a little bit about the trans thing. The soccer player, I do want to get to this story where he actually shatters a knee of a female player. And now he's claiming victimhood because the girls don't want to play against him anymore. And now he's considering a discrimination lawsuit against the players and the teams that have actually forfeited matches because they don't want to play against the guy who shattered this girl's knee in real time. Like it's like you can see he shatters her knee. And we've got to talk about it, David and I, but we're always very thankful for our listeners, especially George. George, thanks so much for joining me on the line. We got about a couple of minutes here. You wanted to talk a little bit about the trans issue?
Well, this goes all the way back to the 70s. It's not brand new. I mean, women have got into men's places, cigar clubs. They took them to court. They took it into the Citadel. They had two women, one in 1920, one in 1990s or 70s. They went to the Citadel, but they didn't wear a uniform. Now they took them to court to go to the Citadel. It was well over 100. I believe it was 1847 it started. Lane Tech High School in Chicago was boys for over 100 years. They took them to court. My wife was the second-class girls in there. You know, 1977, David, you're too young to remember, too. But all the women in big cities, not all of them, of course, but a lot of them, the liberals, took their bras off and threw them in the street and set them on fire. That made all the men unhappy. Go ahead, jump up and down some more, you know, while they were doing that. But these aren't gentlemen. These are guys who couldn't make it in their own sport. But they opened the door. You can't have it both ways. I don't think they should be in there. I think every girl that's on every team should stay home. Sure, some of them are going to lose out on it, but they're going to lose out on it anyway. You You know, people don't understand something. You raise your kids to be independent, and this is what you wind up with, craziness.
Hey, George, it's interesting. Hey, I'm sorry I couldn't take your call the other day on my show, the DPB show, but I'm learning to ride the bicycle without training wheels. So I'm operating my board op now, and I can only do so many things behind there because I get lost in my own train of thought, which is easy, you know, as
that's
we
old
talk.
age.
That's right. We talk about it. Hey, so something I pointed out to Kat, and you'll appreciate this. You remember the movie The Longest Yard, the original movie with Ray Nitsky?
Oh, yeah. With,
Ray Nitsky and Burt Reynolds. And then they had
Right.
the guy that played in the 007 movie, the real extremely large man that was like 7 foot tall.
Lurk.
Yeah, exactly. And they had a cheerleading, a group of prison inmates who were cheerleaders. So this has been going on in the prison system where men, you know, dress up like women and try to do whatever they do in the prison environment. Now, I don't know. I haven't been into the Department of Corrections for many years. I used to do some prison ministry. I don't know if how they handle that now, but ultimately, as you said, George, there's nothing new under the sun. What is new is the acceptance or the use, or what I should say is the virtue signaling, because the left really doesn't care about transgenderism.
Mhm.
They really don't.
Well, and one thing that I'll say is, you know, I think that this was a move in the 70s and later or earlier in history to make it comedic, to make it lighthearted, where you put it in films, because now what you've done, you've conditioned people into thinking that that kind of behavior is okay. So they infiltrated Mrs. Doubtfire is one of those films, right?
Flip Wilson dressed up as the alter ego Geraldine.
Medea, that's another one. I mean, there's just so many examples, and I think
about Hoover.
Yeah.
What they were trying to do was condition people into thinking it's funny, and then all of a sudden it became it became not a joke. Yeah. And the only way to really get people to adopt this belief that women can be men and men can be women, because that's outrageous. The only way they could do that was by infiltrating the media and the comedy films and the culture,
sports, entertainment, yes,
in a very non-threatening way. And then all of a sudden it became very threatening, 40 years later.
Yeah. But it goes all the way. It goes all the way back into the Roman army. The Roman army used to take men along, homosexuals, queers, whatever you prefer to call them, you know, and to do what they had to do because they didn't want women getting there and getting pregnant and everything else. So they took men along. And I read a historian everything's over 50 years because I'm 80 now. I listened to a historian back then talk about what destroyed the country is high taxes and homosexuality. And we're getting that right in this country right now.
Mm-hmm. Well,
that's crazy, George.
We've got
crazy,
to
George.
Take a break. You're listening to Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Thank you to our listeners. We are so thankful for you calling in. If you want to call in on this issue, go ahead and call me at 309-451-9299. And David and I, we're going to be talking a little bit more about that female soccer player, her knee being shattered. And then we do want to get to religious freedom. It's under attack in San Diego. This pastor is actually suing the mayor for booting him off a board that he was sitting on. So we do have to talk about that. That's next on The Buzz. Good morning, folks. This is the Morning Buzz. Things you care about. Go ahead and text in if you want us to cover a topic. Text it in at 309-451-9299. We do want to talk a little bit about that Fox Business report here next and how Thanksgiving dinner is not as costly as it was last year.
Yeah.
But we've got the facts and figures and reality on our side, so we're going to talk about it here next.
Move the camera around.
Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. If you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. A few things we got to hit. White House has now come out and they have claimed that we have a lower Thanksgiving meal. The prices, anyway, are lower. Then the facts and the reality, it kind of tends to get into the way here, David. So here we go. I'm just going to read.
Over last year.
Yes.
It's relative to last year's cost of a Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah. So here's the numbers. The average cost of a Thanksgiving meal for 10 in 2023 is $61.17. That's 4.5% cheaper than 2022's average cost of $64.05. So you're saving a whole whopping $3. David, what are you going to do with your $3? Do you know?
More stuffing? I don't know.
$3 in savings. I mean, that's a whole lot. I might be able to go get myself a gumball out of the gumball machine now. If I wanted a gumball, that it's $3 worth of savings.
I'm going to make a campaign contribution with it.
Okay.
To
Donald J. Trump.
I don't know, because I think we were talking about this off air, or at least on our social media platforms, that, it's interesting. And I would like to hear from our audience. Does anybody out there ever hear about the Democrats circulating petitions? I'm sure they're doing it because, that's how, by law, election law requires that we petition our constituency or the voter base. It's part of the electoral process. But I've not heard of anybody talking about Joe Biden circulating petitions.
I don't know.
I know about Trump. I know about DeSantis here in the state of Illinois. So I find it interesting. If you know of somebody that's circulating Biden petitions, or maybe they're just not circulating his petitions. Yeah.
It'd be interesting. I mean, we don't know, because I want to know. I mean, here's another question. Why don't the Democrats host a primary debate? We've already had multiple Republican primary debates, but there's no debate for the Democrats.
Well, and there are candidates who have announced, and I don't know if they're circulating petitions.
Yeah.
These are the facts I think we should all know. This is the transparency and accountability.
I really want to know, and probably our audience wouldn't be good, because they're all, if you're listening to Cities 92.9, chances are you vote, and the parties have that information of who you vote for.
We have a few dissenters of the conservative, Christian conservative way of life, or the conservative way of life, that are out there. I see them on our platform, our Facebook platform.
Yeah, trolls. Yeah, Dan, Jeff's what is his name? Jeff Frank.
Yeah,
that's it.
Jeffy.
Yeah, I'd imagine that they are Democrats, but I'm curious. Hey, do you guys get approached with petitions for Joe Biden? Because I've never seen one in circulation, and you would think that I would have saw one at least on campus. I do remember when I was on campus, it was JB's people. JB's people were out there, and they were campaigning for JB, and they were offering people $10 McDonald's cards in exchange, you go vote for JB.
I do know Darren Bailey, when he was out stumping and knocking doors, going door to door, he noticed a few people with backpacks. And this was during the campaign. This was after they had submitted their packets, their candidate packets, to the State Board of Elections. This was well steeped into the process of the campaign. And he remembered seeing people with backpacks, and he was curious. And he kind of knew a couple of them because they were, around the political process, and he knew of them. They are nice to him. He said, "Hey, what do you guys do out here doing today?" Well, all of them were carrying laptops, and they were out there helping people register and get their ballots and making sure they were gathering ballots. And that gets back to what President Trump challenged Ronna McDaniel to do is to turn the ship of the Republican National Committee, the RNC, towards actually going to war rather than battling amongst ourselves as Republicans. It's very evident, as Rick Scott said, Senator Scott.
Well, and here's one thing then, Mike Lindell, I was listening to him bring up that over 200 counties, I think it is, in the nation. Now, that's not a whole lot, but they have committed to just using paper ballots.
Yeah.
And I would love to see a grassroots effort campaign to get counties across the nation to adopt this. Hey, let's do paper ballots. Argentina, they just had like one of the most efficient elections in history, in world history, where they were able to get the winner overnight, and they don't have anything like electronic voting or voting machines. They don't have anything like that. They
Kat,
just do paper ballots.
We have 40
France,
days of early voting.
Yes.
40 days. What could possibly go wrong in 40 days? And that's not the end of it. Election day starts another 14-day process that, as long as you have submitted your ballot by election day,
yep,
then there's 14 days of adjudication.
Yeah. Well, and I get it, maybe
54 days of voting.
The election machines, you tried it, it failed epically. And that's not me saying it. Kamala Harris, as I just said, she said that voting machines, I mean, I've got her quote here. DC Drano put it out on his page. I'm going to pull up the quote.
Well, I mean, Obama obviously said that that it's better when Democrats are counting the ballots.
Yes. And then you've got Kamala Harris. She says election machines can be easily hacked.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not me saying it. That's Kamala Harris, a Democrat.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and then you got Joe Biden. We have the biggest voter fraud organization in history.
Yeah.
Then you've got Ruby Freeman on tape feeding the ballots through the tabulator on video multiple times, the same ballot multiple times.
Yeah.
And I mean, then you've got evidence here. I mean, the Gateway Pundit reported it. It's a police report. It's not the Gateway Pundit reporting it. It's a physical police report that shows a Democrat activist filed 10,000 plus fake voter registrations in Michigan.
Yeah.
Then I think there was a story out of Boston, Massachusetts, where he goes to vote on election day.
Yeah.
And then the people tell him that he already voted. He goes, wait a second, what? And somebody sifted through his mailbox, grabbed his mail-in ballot, and voted for the other candidate. At what point are we going to sit here and allow our counties to continue this really, I mean, ineffective way of conducting elections?
You know that I was part of the Bailey campaign, and I did election integrity, and we tried to put out as many people into the electoral process as we could, election judges, poll watchers. Little did we know that the ballot harvesting or the mail-in ballots was really where the payoff was. And so I firsthand personal knowledge of one of our poll watchers up in the Berwyn Township in the Chicago area, the city of Chicago, at the Cicero mail-in voting processing center. They had received over 500,000 mail-in ballots to this processing center. Our poll watchers there were watching as this third-party contract service, who were all receiving the ballots, were feeding them through the machines. And they were talking about the different things that they were witnessing and trying to get them to stop. And of course, they weren't trying to stop because they had so many ballots to process. But there was insufficient addresses, lack of signatures. I mean, a plethora of different things, irregularities to the ballots. But it didn't shut it down. They went through and processed all those ballots, mail-in ballots.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom line is they should pull them, stop the process, and verify. Dual signature verification. Look at the addresses. But that wasn't happening. This particular poll watcher called me up hysterically crying, saying they are just running things through. And when I've tried to say, hey, slow down, stop, I want to look at this one, I want to look at that one, they were saying, no, we're getting paid $20 an hour just to make sure that we get all of these bundles of mail-in ballots put through the system.
It was a third-party organization.
Yeah. I mean, that's how they, when you are receiving that amount of mail,
Yeah.
we're now up to well over 800,000 mail-in ballots. So roughly a little over 4 million ballots are cast in the state of Illinois. And you've got almost little over 20%, 25, closer to 25% of those ballots are now mail-in ballots. That's where the payoff is.
And how much is your vote worth to you? So I always tell people this, if you are for a mail-in ballot system, why don't you put $500 or so in an envelope and mail it back to yourself?
Yeah.
Try it.
Yeah.
Like, will you do it? You know what I mean? I encourage you. And there's a reason why you're hesitant to do that, because will you get that $500 back? Who knows? I know that I'm always constantly waiting for mail to come in at the mailbox, and I'm like waiting for people to mail me things. And
But Kat, why the advent of the election season? Why 40 days?
Yeah.
In Virginia, it's 45 days. Why so many days? Why did we go? Was it because of COVID? I mean, that's what COVID gave us, was a system of elongating the electoral process.
I think that there is a push, and it's not me saying it, it's the New York Times saying it, it's the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Elections don't matter. Look at their headlines. They said, do elections truly matter? I mean, this is Atlantic, this is New York Times printing headlines that say, do elections really matter? Should we have elections? Are elections bad for democracy? I truly believe that there's a push to undermine and to disparage,
do away with the electoral process.
And this is just one way they're doing it. I'm back with David Paul next on The Buzz. Good morning, friends. Thanks so much for listening. If you're watching right now, go ahead and smash the like button. Yes, I do believe that they want to just do away with the election process, and they've inundated the election process with all of this
craziness,
extra stuff.
Yeah. The ability it used to be that mail-in ballots were reserved for those who couldn't cast a ballot. They were either homebound, veterans, or our servicemen overseas. I mean, there's real legitimate reasons why we should have vote by mail.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't apply to everybody. Everything shouldn't be it takes away the essence of being able to go to your polling place, to your voting precinct, and take a piece of paper, not a keyboard or not a mouse or not an electronic device, but to take a physical ballot and to see the ballot. One of the things that I have a difficult time with is the electronic means of looking at a screen and then hitting the button that says you're voting for somebody, and then the screen advances. Granted, you get a printout. I get it. And you should be able to look at who your selections are, but just too many things.
Too many variables.
Too many
things that you cannot control when you add all of the stuff. And here's the thing. Everybody
in Argentina, they had a paper ballot.
To have to try to ballot harvest. And I get that, David. I think our efforts, and I truly do believe this, would be better spent trying to stop this undermining of our electoral process. The getting non-citizens to vote in our municipal elections, the mail-in ballots, the 40 days of voting. Because here's the thing, the Democrats, they already have a leg up on us because they mastered it in 2020.
Operationalized it. Yeah.
They operationalized it. So it's going to take a couple of years at least for us to gain the ability to fight in this world.
But Kat, you're trying to disenfranchise voters. No, I'm not. I want every voter to be educated in the electoral process.
I think that
I want them to look at a constitution. I want them to know their candidates. I want them to be a better citizen. I want them to take the personal responsibility of getting to a place where they get a physical ballot and they fill it out for whomever they choose.
And I get it that Republicans, I think the efforts would be better spent, though, going county to county and getting these counties to say, hey, not in my town,
Yeah.
not in my town, not in
Yeah.
my county. I will not have election voting machines. We have over 200 counties in the nation who have
Yeah.
already said that we're not going to do mail-in ballots. We're not going to do
We're gonna do paper
election
ballots.
machines. We're going to do paper ballots day of
With voter ID?
with voter ID.
Mm.
And people don't think that their counties have the ability to do that. No, because 200 counties across the nation have done it.
Yes.
They've already come out and said, no, we're going to do elections this way.
Well, you've seen the Code of Elections, the book. I mean, it's in Illinois, it's very thick. I mean, the statutes are exhausting. You know, you look at all of the things that have gone into making up an election in Illinois now. But
Mhm.
you're right. At the end of the day, your county clerks have the ability to run their elections according to statute, but to run their elections as they see best fit to represent the voters.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, there's county clerks who are doing it right now.
Yes,
Mike
obviously.
Lindell talked about it.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's just and I get this whole Republican push to try to ballot harvest because we've got to play on the same playing field that they are in. But really, I think that this message of voter ID, same person in, especially when you look at things like
Yeah.
France, Argentina, they're already doing this.
They're going
what
back to
America
it.
is
Yeah.
doing is totally not what other countries are doing.
No, because the system is they're trying to fix the system.
Yeah. And I think it's a winning message. I think Republicans can get people to understand, hey, you really want a trustworthy system? Voter ID, same day.
Yeah.
A ballot. And like I said, the Boston, Massachusetts thing.
Same
this
day
wasn't-
voting, voter ID, one day.
It wasn't a Republican.
Yeah.
It was a Democrat.
Yeah.
It was a Democrat voting for a Democrat. He wanted to vote for a specific Democrat, but he didn't get to vote for that Democrat in the primary.
Yeah.
The woman who stole his ballot out of his mailbox voted for somebody different.
Yeah.
Then
The problem is the replacement theory. They're finding themselves without enough people to get them into office, the Dems. And that's really scaring them.
Mhm.
Right. So now they're going to try to manufacture votes,
Mhm.
whether that's through inactive voters, whether that's actually adding more people to the voter rolls that might not even have the ability to truly legally be voting.
I don't know your thoughts. I mean, I guess we could do some ballot harvesting. I just think that Republicans would be better off.
Well,
pushing
but
for
right
something
now,
that is
Kat, you've got to be so far ahead of that. Once again, I think that once we go out and show them that we operationalize, because we always do it better, right? I mean, socialism doesn't work.
Yeah.
The Democrat process is socialism. If we show them we can do it better, which we will, then they will cry uncle and say, oh, no, we need to go back to same day voting.
Yes. Woohoo! Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Ryan, he texted in. He goes, here's a solution. 1 day voting, voter ID required, mail-in only with required proof of your inability to vote in person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Very
That's
simple.
the way it used to be, Kat. I know that they say that that's disenfranchises so many voters, but this is the Democrat Party is losing voters right and left.
Well, here's an idea.
Mostly right.
Let's and here's the thing. Let's move the day. Let's move the day not to a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Let's move it to a weekend where everybody's off on a
or
Saturday.
Just make it a national holiday.
Make it a national holiday.
Yeah.
Make sure everybody has the day off to go out and to go vote in person. I just don't see what's so hard about this. And it bothers me so bad. It's like, what? This is a very simple solution.
Yeah.
Then you get rid of all of this doubt that people have when it comes to our electoral process.
Yeah,
in the
because
United States.
If you start elongating the process to election seasons, do you know you have to staff those voting centers for 40 days?
Yeah.
I mean, that cost that comes.
I don't think that those county clerks really like that all that much, because then they're working all this time and they're getting paid. And
that's right. I think there's a sufficient amount of people who realize it's just not working.
Yeah.
And if there's such a public outcry, and it's not on just one side of the aisle, it's on both sides of the aisle.
Mhm.
I mean, for the longest time, the Democrats were screaming about the electoral process. They were the ones who came out, and were up in arms about the not having the access to the ballot.
Yeah. Well, folks, that's going to do it for us here on the Morning Buzz. Big thank you to David Paul Blumenshine, who came in this morning, helped me with the latter half of the show.
Yeah.
If you missed any of the show, go to cities929.com, click on the podcast. Be sure to subscribe to David Paul Blumenshine's YouTube channel. That's the DPP show. Type in David Paul Blumenshine, Cities 92.9. You'll be able to find it. We'll do it all again tomorrow morning. I am going to be here, I believe, for Thanksgiving. 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. while you guys are driving. So I'm going to have a special about Thanksgiving and the true meaning behind Thanksgiving and what it's all really about. So I want to make sure I do this special for you on Thursday morning. So tune in tomorrow morning because you won't want to miss it while you're driving over to Grandma's house. Bye-bye. Love you.
Bye-bye.